What's going on, Summoners? I'm Kangas, and today I'm covering our low to mid elo tier list for patch 2.1b. This specific tier list is meant for everyone up to Plat 1, but keep an eye out for our next tier list, which will be Emerald and higher. This time we decided to make two distinct lists in order to provide more specific tiers, as some champions are just stronger in certain elo brackets. Let us know if you like it. But before jumping into the video, our question of the day. What is your typical pre-Wild Rift game ritual? Personally, I love grabbing a cup of coffee before jumping into some ranked games. Really helps wake me up, and it's just a great way to start your day. And also then, depending on whether I win or not, my mood will drastically change. But let me know your answer in the comments below, and let's get into the video. To start off our video, we're going over the Baron lane picks, beginning with Gragas. The plump man has been performing exceptionally well for quite some time now, but has been bumped down a peg thanks to Liandry's nerf, now placing him in the S tier rather than the OP tier. With a ton of area of effect abilities and high damage numbers, his burst damage in the mid to late stages of the game is pretty surprising. He can sneak up on an unsuspecting AD carry and completely burst them down in a single combo. His strengths lie not only in his damage, but also in the crowd control built into the kit. He has 2 knockups and a slow, making his abilities incredibly beneficial in a team fighting scenario. Gragas' ultimate, Explosive Cask, devastates clumped up enemies, creating opportunities for wombo combos. Oh, and this skill also makes for excellent disengages too. Thanks to the healing from his passive, Happy Hour, Gragas sustains quite well in lane, creating little to no weak points in his play. It's honestly surprising how long he's been able to stay top tier in Wild Rift without getting big nerfs. Up next, we have Olaf. The nerfs a couple patches ago to his early survivability hit him rather hard, standing no longer as an uncontested broken pick. This doesn't mean that he's no longer viable though, and still sitting in the A tier picks, he plays essentially the same, running into the enemy headfirst and axing them down. A strong Olaf sprinting at you unaffected by crowd control is still absolutely terrifying. The difference now is that Olaf players need to think a couple steps ahead, prudently considering the negative trade-offs rather than just blindly choosing every trade. He's now very much killable during his previously unstoppable charge, allowing for more outplay and maneuvering potential around the pick. He's no longer as overwhelming to handle, allowing for other Baron lane champions who prioritize different objectives to see more impact in the game. And hey, if you're already lost and wondering what exact changes were brought in patch 2.1b, go check out our most recent patch analysis video. We talk about the changes and the potential implications of the update leading into this tier list. And the final Baron lane pick we have is Yasuo. Love him or hate him, this champ got nerfed. With his base armor and health nerfed an incredibly large amount, the champion is really vulnerable when engaging now. To add on, Riot decreased his movement speed from the dashes, which means that he can't maneuver as quickly as he could before. If you lock Yasuo down, or if you choose to trade with him, he's now much more susceptible to dying. Similar to Olaf, his damage numbers have been unchanged, and therefore his key playstyle is still pretty much the same. Those who have mastered the mechanics on him and understand how to weave around the enemy will find no trouble doing the same fancy plays as before. But for those who just brute force their way through, relying on base stats and shield for survivability, they'll without a doubt find more difficulty mastering the champion. So here's our list for the Baron lane champs. Before we move on though, be sure to check out our ProGuides Wild Rift Discord. Become involved with players such as yourself and discuss everything Wild Rift related. Also, we got funny emotes with all of us talent on there, so go spam Nate's one. He needs the love. Now moving on to the jungle. First up, we have Shyvana in our overpowered jungle picks, who has just been terrorizing the Wild Rift. She has a very simple kit that scales incredibly well with farming. Unlike the other typical jungle picks that have excellent ganks, Shyvana's ganks are honestly a tad lackluster. With only one gap closer, wards easily counter her ganks, but Shyvana's greatest strength doesn't lie in those ganks, but rather in her map control. Her base damage is really high, meaning she's able to secure objectives such as Scuttle Crab and Elemental Dragons with ease. Shyvana even has increased damage against dragons, allowing her to have the fastest solo dragon clear speed in the game. These factors all aid in her overwhelming map pressure, allowing her to be a fantastic jungle pick. Though her ganks may seem a little weak, her counter ganks are actually where she shines. With the amount of map pressure Shyvana gains with ease, positioning to counter the enemy jungler should be a cinch. Shyvana is able to capitalize on overextended enemy engages thanks to her ultimate ability, which throws Shyvana into them, capable of knocking multiple enemies back. If they try to escape, her ranged fireball serves as a very reliable execute. In addition, Shyvana deals both AP and AD damage, making it really hard to build defensively against her. Next up, Jarvan IV stepped one ring up in our tier list. Now in the A tier, Jarvan's royal power is beginning to gain recognition. Though Jarvan doesn't offer much in regards to consistent damage, his knockup flag combo is very useful. This combo can knock out many enemy targets, making for an excellent engage and powerful crowd control ability. In addition, Jarvan's ultimate ability locks down enemy champions while dealing substantial damage. The biggest downside of the Jarvan pick would have to be his lack of consistent damage throughout a fight. His initial burst damage is fantastic, don't get me wrong, but after all of his skills go on cooldown, he is often just a sitting duck. Once Jarvan engages with this flag combo, with rather long cooldowns and therefore no escape, he better be tanky enough to survive the subsequent enemy onslaught. And Vi is another jungler whose kit relies on knockups. Her engage and initial burst crowd control is fantastic for starting off fights, allowing her to be on our A tier list. Her passive functions similarly to Vayne's Silver Bolts, where hitting a target 3 times deals extra damage. This means that her damage throughout the fight is pretty consistent. Vi's first ability knocks up enemies, but stops at the first champion she hits. This means that for the most part, Vi's Vault Breaker will only hit a single target. Her ultimate though, Assault and Battery, is an unstoppable dive towards an enemy champion. This skill guarantees her a lockdown on a specific champion, breaking through the enemy frontline and knocking up the target and all adjacent enemy champs. The utility on this skill makes it a fantastic tool to control and disrupt the flow of a teamfight. So here's our full tier list for the jungle. If you guys keep getting forced into playing jungle, because honestly not a lot of people like that role, and you're looking to improve at the role, check out our ultimate jungle pathing guide video. Playing a top tier pick on this list alongside following that guide will definitely help you learn the role. Next up, we have the mid lane picks, starting off with Ahri. The Nine-Tailed Fox is now in our overpowered picks thanks to her wave clear and versatile utility. Her abilities are all on a rather low cooldown, with her first ability excelling in bursting down the minion waves. This allows her to be in a dominant position for most of the laning phase, capable of following up roams and providing aid to her teammates wherever necessary. And with so much crowd control presently in the game, Ahri's charm is easier to land than ever. Simply throwing out her kiss when the enemy is already locked down to elongate and demolish that single target. Throw out the rest of Ahri's abilities soon after, and practically nobody in the game can survive the burst damage. The dashes from her ultimate, Spirit Rush, give her aggressive and defensive capabilities. 3 dashes is a lot, and each one has the ability to cross over terrain. This unique advantage of itself is enough to place her in a top tier pick, as it allows her to retreat very effectively and jump unsuspecting targets from across a wall. Especially after the Liandry's nerfs, Ahri has been enjoying being one of the easiest to play and strongest mid laners in patch 2.1b. Next up is Diana. Keep in mind that this is an early estimate. We believe she'll be in the A tier picks for the mid lane, so still meta, but not horrendously powerful. Her teamfighting utility through her ultimate is incredible, with multiple dashes in her kit alongside an area of effect slow and knockup to devastate the enemy team. But because she's a melee champion with little escape potential, players need to properly gauge the situation before diving in. She's not like Orianna or Ahri, who can kite from afar and peel for themselves. Nope, her early game is her weakest point in the game, with weak wave clear and no crowd control. However, when Diana builds her core items, her burst damage increases drastically, capable of massacring the entire wave from a single crescent strike. She should be fully capable of 100-0ing the enemy AD carry in the mid to late stages of the game as well. And Aurelion Sol is next, one of the biggest nerf champions in the most recent patch. The reason he was so overpowered before was because the center of the universe simply did too much damage, stacking way too much damage over time with each subsequent hit. He's now sitting lower at the B tier, as his early game orb nerf decreased his pick potential substantially. He can still roam the map early on and create a massive galaxy cluster that's nearly impossible to dodge, but since his damage numbers are just lower, the chances of his roams yielding a kill drop significantly. His late game should still play about the exact same, maybe even a little better, as Riot didn't really change his late game numbers. So here's our comprehensive list for the mid lane. For AD carry picks, we're starting off with Xayah. She is now in our overpowered list, largely in part to the massive buffs given to her in patch 2.1a. Admittedly, we believe Riot overtuned her ability scaling just slightly, and thanks to her passive, it's really easy to poke the enemy out of lane, with feathers popping out, extending the damage of her auto attacks. And keep in mind, these feathers also provide lockdown potential. With the safety of her ultimate, she's an incredibly hard AD carry to burst down, she can control zones, and does a lot of damage. If you chase Xayah in a straight line, chances are she'll kite you down, and her feathers will stop you dead in your tracks. And if we zoom out, much of the overall meta also allows Xayah to succeed. Her skills are a little difficult to pull off without crowd control and an initial engage, but as Wild Rift is full of both of these at the moment, Xayah excels in extending and capitalizing on the lockdown provided by her team. Vayne is up next as our only C tier pick in this category. Yep, no surprise, she's still probably the worst AD carry right now, with no lane pressure, a fragile body, and pretty low damage to make up for her kit. She can only target one enemy champion at a time, making her kit very weak in a duo lane, where there are almost always at least 2 champions. To make matters worse, all the top tier AD carries seem to have splash damage to deal as much DPS to as many champions as possible. Vayne severely lacks this, and so without the means to burst the enemy team, she just can't get kills, can't acquire enough gold, and therefore cannot properly impact the game. If you still want to play and learn her, go for it. But we'll tell you here and now, she is not in a good state, so choosing an alternative AD carry might work out better in your favor. And the last AD carry on our list is Ezreal, who dropped down from the A tier pick to a B tier. Most of the higher tier AD carry champions have stronger wave clear than him and can get damage through the frontline tanks. Jinx has her splash damage from rockets, Kai'Sa has her jump and synergy with Hurricane, and Xayah's feathers simply go through champions. Ezreal skill shots, on the other hand, are easily stopped by a tanky frontline, making it way more difficult for Ezreal players to deal substantial damage. The old brainless skill shot spam Ezreal playstyle is now officially out of date. If you want to succeed while playing him, you'll really need to mechanically outplay the enemy, shooting your abilities in unpredictable angles to impact the game. In essence, he's still viable, but way more difficult to play. So here's our AD carry tier list. And to finish off this list, talk about my favorite role, support. The first on our list is Leona. And as mentioned with the Diana pick, this is of course an early estimate. Our analysts at ProGuides already believe that she will be an overpowered support pick, standing in line with Alistar. This is because her early power, at least in the League of Legends PC version, is one of the strongest in the game for support champs. She has 3 hard CC abilities in her kit, 2 of which can be learned immediately at level 2. She hard counters pretty much every enchanter support besides maybe Janna, and in addition, her roaming and engage potential are incredibly powerful. Leona's abilities expedite practically every teamfight scenario. Keep an eye out for this champ, as we're rather certain that she'll be taking over the Wild Rift. Next up, we're talking about the champ I put the most time into last year on the PC version, Pantheon support. This is once again an early estimate. Though he was originally intended for the Baron lane during his first debut in League PC, we believe that he'll see more play as a support pick on Wild Rift. Similar to Leona, he's got hard crowd control in his kit from his point and click stun. In addition, Pantheon has a Braum-like shield blocking all damage in front of him, but the difference is that this skill also deals damage. These abilities are exceptional as a support pick, placing him in our early estimated S tier picks for patch 2.1b. And to finish things off, his ultimate is actually similar to Twisted Fate, allowing him to teleport himself across the map while dealing damage around the area. This will officially be one of 2 global teleporting skills in the game, beside the teleport enchant itself, of course. It's hard to tell how much this will impact the meta, but we have no doubt it'll be a fantastic roaming tool that will change the pacing of the game. And the final pick for discussion is Lulu, who is now in our B tier picks. The nerfs in patch 2.18 really gutted her, forcing players to position way more forward and therefore placing themselves in far riskier situations. And if she decides to play back and safe, because of the effective range decrease on her core skills, she cannot properly impact the game. Lulu is now more vulnerable, more squishy, and overall a less optimal pick than before. Especially with aggressive engage-heavy picks like Leona and Pantheon debuting on the Wild Rift, players who mindlessly play Lulu will find themselves in really tough predicaments during patch 2.1b. So here's our comprehensive support list. Well, as usual, thanks for watching today's video. Really hope you enjoyed the content, and if you did, make sure to leave a like and sub to the channel. Also, let us know if you like these new split tier lists based on ELO. We're always open to feedback. And answer a question of the day in the comments below too. Check out our Wild Rift Discord, but as always, the most important thing is good luck on the Rift. Stay hydrated, and I'll see you next time. Really wakes me up and helps me feel focused. Also just